answered a lot quicker. That way, every 2016 blocks, they'll adjust it to make sure that it stays around 10 minutes. That said, if a bunch of people decided they wanted to deviate and mine something else, then the time would go up. And so all they're doing is just adjusting it to make sure it stays around 10 minutes. That's another big part of the Bitcoin blockchain technology that is often kind of underestimated, is the readjustment at routine intervals. That's it. The rest I can go through. These are the extra slides that were added. Let's do that one. So everybody's heard about all the hacking that's going on in Bitcoin. They're true. However, there's a caveat on that, is that like Bitcoin itself has never been hacked. The blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain has never been altered, sorry, it's been altered once. That was in 2010, where 6 billion Bitcoin were created in a block, and they rolled the chain back. That was ages ago. Since then, it's been up. Anytime there's a hack that you hear about, it's always with an intermediary, a fiduciary, someone attached to the Bitcoin network. I do have, as far as quality information on Bitcoin, I do have copies of the white paper that have their paper copies, because it's nice to have something tangible. But in the back, there's a list of Bitcoin resources that direct you to some of the, frankly, the sources I use every day when I look to this, and always point people who are looking to learn in that direction. If you want one, come again. That's them there. If you would rather just snap a photo, I'll leave this slide open after I finish. And I think that's it. Joseph?
So I just got a question. Not that I'm looking for the answer, but more of your explanation. So Bitcoin with a capital B implemented the first blockchain, right, using the protocol. That blockchain technology, how does it get used for other things besides, so Bitcoin with a small b is the actual currency, and Bitcoin with the big B with the blockchain is actual technology. How's that technology? How can that technology be used in other areas? For example, what they've done with Ethereum or other things.
You get into the current hot topic debate of what do you need a decentralized mechanism for that is backlinked to all your previous references that you can't solve with a database. So if you've got a bunch of...
So what's a good example I'm getting at, really?
Well, it's debatable. There's some that say really good, like land titles is one of the popular ones you hear a lot. That, you know, I own my house, and then if I sell it, I transfer the deed to you. Here we technically have a system for that, even though it's super archaic. But that would be a much easier solution. That would require a lot less bureaucracy and paperwork. If I could just like, okay, we've sold our house, we both agree the house is sold, scan please, transaction complete. As far as examples, I'm not going to go into what I think a bunch of good examples are. That's a very popular one that you hear a lot. But it really comes down to, do you have a bunch of parties that don't trust each other, that have to work together, that need theoretically an immutable ledger that can't be changed? So if you were a group of companies working on a project together that had to all share funds, that would be a place where you could theoretically use something on a blockchain-like level. It's gentleman from the Chamber of Commerce is here. I would say government would be another good one. So you've got a budget for fixing the Skyway that a few different branches of the government have to kind of share and figure out who's getting what. in that sense, then public utilities, you know, gets one piece. I don't know enough about it to say who gets what, but that would be a really good way to maintain visibility, not only for you guys, but I mean theoretically the public as well, because like Bitcoin ledger is public. So if I could track where my tax dollars went, of like looking at like, okay, the tax revenue for Hamilton this year was X amount of dollars, and then each of the trickle down into where that money was spent and stuff like that, would be really cool. But the big point is that you need something where trust isn't there. And I'm not saying that you guys don't trust each other. Looking at the fact that it's verifiable, it can't be adjusted, and
So manufacturing would be one too, where you get from raw material to final product. Would that be another good example?
you get into really tricky territory, and I've been asking this question for years, and everybody's kind of like, that's impossible. So here's the challenge to anyone who wants to try and figure this one out. Tracking physical goods on the blockchain. Because all of this is computer data. How do you track a physical good? So in manufacturing, how do I verify that the materials provided were turned into the product that we agreed upon and were delivered to this company, person, party, country, whatever that is? That's the difficulty as far as implementing a blockchain into something that deals with a physical, tangible good.
If I may, it's kind of like the same reason we don't have these smart fridges that tell us what we're lacking, and they email us and tell us while we're at the grocery store, oh, buy eggs because we're short on eggs, because then the owner's task is on the user in order to input those things. And I mean, like Rodney was saying, you may as well just use a database at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can get into that. There's
But that's assuming you're the one manufacturer. If you have multiple products and services, or multiple entry points where there's multiple companies, just like your government example, each one of them would have an input and output check somewhere that would say, yeah, I've supplied this, I've supplied this, I've supplied this, it went into this, okay, I created that, now I've supplied this. So you can actually see where, if you get to the end product, as long as everybody's checking along the way, right, for each product that comes in and out, then you have a whole chain, right? Wouldn't that be a good
And
example?
that's the kind of the theoretical, is that if I'm provided a bunch of iron, metal, or whatever to create something, that something I create, as far as I know, has got a serial number on it. There's a way of verifying that I created that thing and that it exists. Then when I transfer that to someone else, then on the bill of lading or whatever it is, like my dad's a truck driver, and every time my dad gets a load somewhere, he puts a one-time seal on his trailer that says this serial number says what's in this load according to this bill of lading. And then when he goes and delivers it to somebody else, they look at the bill of lading that says all the serial numbers of the product inside, looks at the serial number on the seal and says, that makes sense. This is the shipment that I ordered from here. Then you get into what is the closest kind of implementation of that I've kind of seen to date. But as far as putting actual physical things, that's kind of as close as you can
Cool.
get.
I think in the supply chain case, it's not so much a case of preventing bad behavior, as in you're going to prevent people from introducing counterfeit goods into the supply chain. It's more a matter of having this shared medium that you can't change, where you can now track the chain of exchange and the chain of ownership from the beginning to end. Whereas with the current way that we do it with database systems, paperwork all over the place, there's really no one place to look for the chain of ownership. But with blockchain tech, really the vast majority of use cases are non-monetary, and it's because it provides that additional insight that just isn't available in modern systems today.
Anyone else? Yes.
Just a quick, quick point. When you were referring to the block size, you said 2 megabytes. Were you referring to the block weight, site width, or do you mean natural block size?
Block weight. Like, it still falls into what's basically comes out on the end
Yeah,
as 2 megabytes worth of data.
yeah.
It's just, it's measured on the block weight as far as what's allowed.
Alright, just wanted to,
I'm not talking Bitcoin Cash.
no, I don't.
Anyone else? All right, thanks everyone for coming.